So first off, okay, the idea is behind this is to look into the feasibility of cloning, okay, whether it could or could not actually happen, okay, in terms of how the film portrays it, okay. So the film Jurassic Park that we're going to watch in a bit originally was a book. Okay, you might not be aware, some films are actually books before they become films, okay? And Michael Crichton wrote this. I think he wrote it in the late 80s, early 90s, if memory serves, okay? It was entitled Jurassic Park, okay? And the actual film itself is very, very similar to the book, okay? There's only a few bits they miss out, okay? In terms of the reason why he wrote this book, okay? So Michael Crichton, apart from being an author, is one of these neophobes, okay? So a neophobe is somebody who's scared or is worried about new things, okay? So he's the kind of person who, if they make a new technology, he's worried about all the implications of that new technology, okay? So if you had nanotechnology, for example, he'd be worried about using small artificial robots to repair your body. He might be worried about how that might make you a superhuman and how you might try to take over the world, okay? That's the kind of person he is. Okay, it's actually a very good book, and he's a very good author, and if you've not had a chance to read the book, I actually would recommend it. Like I say, it's one of the few books I've read, okay, so I don't know, if you knew me, that would convey a lot, okay, it's quite a decent book, okay, so officially, according to what could be plausible, what couldn't be plausible, okay, Jurassic Park is pretty good on the science, okay. Not quite maybe as good as Apollo 13 that we watched in the first lecture, okay, because that's pretty much a true story. But in terms of science fiction, some of the concepts and things they do in this film are pretty accurate. Okay, I must admit they are pretty good. Okay, and I think there's a little scale here. So if Jurassic Park was the best, going down in the films, I don't know if you've ever seen Contact with Jodie Foster. Okay, and that's reasonably realistic as well. That's about intercepting signals from outer space. Okay, and building a machine according to the blueprints that were sent. Okay, Gattaca, which you watched the other day with after Justin's lecture. Okay, that's also reasonably feasible, and you saw some of the equipment that he brought along that shows you how you can do blood testing and stuff like that. Okay, so that's reasonable. Of course, if you've never seen 2012, please never watch that film. Never watch that film. Okay, it is atrocious. Okay, the science in that is beyond a joke. It is just, honestly, it's ridiculous. I think the first opening scenes are something to do with neutrinos are coming along. Okay, now neutrinos go through us all the time. Okay, but suddenly there's lots of them, and that causes a problem, and the Earth gets destroyed essentially. Right? I have no idea how any of it works. It was a terrible film. Okay, it also has terrible actors. And obviously you also know it's not a true story because 2012 was a few years ago, okay? And it didn't actually happen. Please. Okay. So the Jurassic Park that we're going to watch, it is reasonably plausible, okay? Some of the science in there is plausible. I'm going to go through some of the science with you now, okay? So the idea for Jurassic Park is they find some fossilized mosquitoes in amber, okay? So amber is tree sap. So the idea is mosquitoes that bite you. I actually have a bite on my leg from last night from a very friendly mosquito. Okay, that mosquito could land on a tree, get covered in the sap, that would fossilize, and then that could be a source of DNA. Okay, so in the film, the idea is that the Jurassic Park, the mosquitoes are trapped in the amber, and they have the dinosaur DNA in them. Okay, that's where they get the dinosaur DNA from. Once they've got the dinosaur DNA, they can do something with that to make dinosaurs. Okay. Now, okay. This is where we'll cut and put the film on. So, they get the dinosaur DNA, and then they're going to make these dinosaurs. Okay. Now, there's a bit of a problem in this. Okay, mostly because the half-life of DNA. So, does anyone know what half-life is? Half-life is. Anyone know what a half-life is?
How long it takes for a chemical to deteriorate into half of its size?
Excellent. Okay, sort of. You're pretty much there. Okay. The half-life is how long it takes a substance to decay to half the amount you originally had. Okay, so usually this is terms of nuclear reactions and stuff like that, you know, like plutonium, it'll have a half-life of so many million years. That means to go from 10 kilograms of the material to 5 kilograms, it takes whatever the half-life is. Okay, so subsequent half-lives, okay, so the next half-life down is a quarter, okay, then an eighth, 16th, 32, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, okay, and that is determined by the half-life, which is a set number. So for DNA, the half-life is around 521 years. Okay, so that's roughly what the half-life of DNA is. Okay, so unless there was an awful lot of DNA in that blood, okay, think about how many millions of years ago these dinosaurs were around. Okay, so there's only going to be small amounts, trace amounts left. Okay, so it might be really difficult to get this dinosaur DNA out, and also in terms of feasibility and viability of the DNA, you want a full strand. And when Justin said the other day, you've got several miles of DNA just wrapped up into one of your cells, think about how much or how difficult it would be to get a complete intact DNA strand. Okay, it's going to be really difficult. Not impossible, okay, but really difficult. All right, cool. This one up here. Okay, so there's been an article published in PNSA, okay, which showed that it was actually able to survive for millions of years for the cells intact, okay, so there could actually still be the DNA in there, but obviously, like I said, it's going to be trace amounts, it's going to be really difficult to get that out, okay. In terms of how you might go about using this DNA, so the idea from Dolly the sheep that was mentioned the other day about getting an embryo, some cell, okay, stripping out all the DNA from it, implanting the new genetic material, and then putting it into a host, okay? And then that host grows, develops, and then you can obviously give birth to whatever animal. So in sheeps, they were mentioned it took an adult cell, which is what these would be. These dinosaur DNA cells would be adult cells. You'd put them into some embryo, okay? And then you'd have to find a host organism for it to gestate, okay? So anyone think of any ideas of what organisms we might use, okay, for a dinosaur? It's a big lizard thing, in case you're not too sure. Any ideas? Chickens? A chicken wouldn't be too bad of an idea, okay? Because lizards lay eggs, yes? Okay, so you might have thought of some lizard, okay? But, of course, dinosaurs, allegedly, I'm sure it's true, evolved, okay? And then they changed and they became more bird-like, okay? So you want some form of animal that lays eggs that has similar sort of genetic or sort of cellular structure to a dinosaur, and some form of bird, some avian type of thing might be okay. The idea, of course, though, is a dinosaur, how big are they, roughly? Very big? Yeah, most of the dinosaurs you'd be aware of are quite big. Are chickens big? Sometimes, okay, sometimes, okay. Usually not too big, though, are they, okay? So what you might want is a bigger chicken, okay? So, yeah, so yeah, you can read the slides, well done. Okay, so you want something that's a bit bigger than a chicken, okay? Ostrich is probably the biggest chicken you can imagine, okay? So I think ostrich is probably the largest bird, okay? So the idea behind this as well, if you look at the cells here on the screen, you'll notice that the cellular structure, okay, between a Tyrannosaurus rex preserved blood cell there and an ostrich's blood cell are very similar in structure, okay? That shows you that you could technically clear out the DNA from one, implant in the other, and then you could technically have a fertilized egg that the ostrich would lay, okay? So we could technically make some dinosaurs that way, okay? So the idea, of course, is should we even bother to bring dinosaurs back? What do you guys think? Nah, why not? Why not, God? They endanger our existence. To a certain extent, well, yeah, I suppose if we've got lots of dinosaurs walking around the street, that might be a problem. Okay. You know, a pet dinosaur, though. It'd be pretty awesome, wouldn't it? It's like, oh, look at this. I don't know why I came up with the name Trevor. I was like, oh, look at Trevor, look at the dinosaur. Ow. I don't know why I call him Trevor. Okay, yeah, no, I mean, you could go for all this process. The idea here, though, of course, is should we bother doing all this huge amount of extractions to bring them back? Well, because we already have their ancestors around us, okay? So when Justin mentioned the other day about the dormant DNA. Okay, remember when he said that we only know so much of our DNA was mapped out, and only certain parts we understood what the genes were. Okay, he said there was huge amounts of the structure that were redundant. Okay, so what happens what is that redundant DNA? Okay, so it's theorized that that dormant DNA might actually be, okay, extra genes or things from our ancestors. Okay, so the idea being, if we could maybe reactivate some of these dormant genes that have been dormant for maybe millions of years, okay, we could bring out some of the genetic features and traits of our ancestors. Okay, so if we've already got a chicken or a bird, okay, we might be able to activate its dormant DNA and actually have a dinosaur, okay, that way. So sort of reverse engineer from the final product of a chicken to make a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Okay, maybe. Okay. And there's a book here as well, Jack Horner, How to Build a Dinosaur, which I'm sure is very good. I've not read it. Okay. And the idea behind that book is, of course, basically changing the genetics materials or changing the gene activations so you can make the dinosaurs via de-evolution, I think it would be called. Yes. And there's an example here where you can see that they've got a normal chicken's head. They've genetically modified it in the middle there, okay, going to the right-hand side. And what happens there, okay, is you notice how it's starting to get a different structure, okay? And that's really similar, okay, to the final image, which is a reptile's facial structure, okay? So it's showing that by activating some of the genes that a chicken has, okay, you can technically almost de-evolve it into some form of reptilian. Okay, so it's not completely unfeasible that we might be able to do this with other avians. Okay, so you might one day get a little pet Trevor. Yeah. How well getting a dinosaur. Okay, cool. So if we actually go through the film and pick out some of the flaws in it. Okay, so there are a few flaws, just so you're aware. Okay, so dinosaurs are portrayed, like the velociraptor in the top left-hand side there, okay, as pretty much scaly reptiles, okay? However, even in more recent research that I've been reading, you'll notice that they usually have feathers or some form of feather-like material covering them, okay? I think they've even found, I think it was really recently, like last month, the oldest record of red pigment found in a feather in a preserved skeleton. So I think it was 60-something million years old. So there was a red pigment. So they're saying that we know for a fact some dinosaur had some feathers and they were red. Okay, so it's the oldest example of a red pigment in a feather. Okay, so they have feathers. Okay, my other one that I hate on this film, I must admit, it does get me every time. Do you know what a velociraptor is? One that moves really fast. You have to get the action there as well. Yeah, I did like that. Okay. So you describe it as this guy here, looking a bit quizzical at you. Yeah? Anyone else? No? Okay. That's fine. You've probably seen the film and you probably believe what they told you. Okay. So here, okay, we have a scale. Okay. Velociraptors are actually really, really small. Okay. They are only slightly bigger than a chicken. Okay, a velociraptor is not actually anywhere near the 6-foot something monstrosity that you see. Okay, that is much more like Deinonychus. Okay, Deinonychus here in the middle there with the green and the white. That is a bit more like what the velociraptors in the film are like. Okay, Deinonychus could get up to about 5, maybe 6 foot. Okay, at max in terms of length. Okay, it had a slightly rounder head. Okay, it didn't look quite as vicious in the same kind of way. Okay. The reason why they chose Velociraptor over Deinonychus, or even over the Ultraraptor there, okay, is because it sounds better. Okay? Saying Deinonychus doesn't sound quite as ferocious as Velociraptor. Okay? That's why Velociraptor's used, okay, in the film. Okay? And that's why all they did was get this guy and stretch him. So that's what the Velociraptors in the film are. Okay? Another little nitpick from me, I actually quite like this one as well. When you notice the Triceratops, okay, the thing with the 3 horns, it's lying on its side, it's ill, it's eaten some berries, okay? You'll notice a huge pile of dinosaur feces, okay, nearby. The feces is that large, it's bigger than a person, okay, it's a big pile, okay. There is no way a dinosaur the size of that Triceratops could leave a pile of feces that's almost as tall as itself, okay, it's just not going to happen, right. Think of a cow leaving a huge cow pat that's a big triangle the same size as a cow, okay, it doesn't happen, does it, okay, small amounts, okay, so be aware of that, all right. The other one, of course, is the frilled lizard one. What's that called? Dilophosaurus, that's the one, yeah. You'll notice that its frills come up and they're quite large, okay? They're probably about my hand span away. That means that if it went flat, it'd have to have a huge, long neck, okay? It doesn't quite work in the realms of how big the dinosaur is compared to how big the frill is. Also in real life, they were also really small frills, they weren't anywhere near the size, and it did not spit green goo, okay? It didn't have this magical green goo it could spit to make people blind, okay? So it didn't have that, okay? The other one, of course, is there's a dinosaur that sneezes. In order to sneeze, you need to expel your lungs really quickly, which requires a diaphragm, okay? So your diaphragm's just here in your rib cage, and it moves up and down and draws air in and pushes air out, okay? If you don't have that, you can't quickly expel the air. Dinosaurs didn't have a diaphragm, and hence they could not sneeze. Okay, so dinosaurs can't sneeze. Okay, so it was impossible. Okay, so be aware of that one. Also, I mean, come on, they climb up a tree. The way they climb up the tree is just ridiculous. It's like so many million feet tall and stuff like that. Do we have any of this one? No, we don't. There's also the bit, of course, where the Tyrannosaurus Rex attacks. Okay, and they get pushed off a cliff. Terrible. The cliff is where the Tyrannosaurus Rex came from. Okay, if you noticed that it was standing on level ground, it crossed the border, and then next thing you know, there was a huge drop. Okay, I don't know why you'd do that. Okay, it's a bit of film bluff there. Cool. Okay, the other one, of course, as well is you'll notice that Edley Sadler gets some leaf material and goes, "Oh, it's Cretaceous period," right? How did they manage to get the entire island to be removed of all the current vegetation and then establish an entire rainforest using Cretaceous plants? Okay, it's just not going to happen. Okay, so all these Cretaceous plants that they find, they're going to have somehow got the DNA from. How are you going to get the DNA from a plant? Okay, it's fossilized. There's no DNA. Okay, so how are you going to get 65 million year old plant material, because mosquitoes don't eat plants, so you're going to have a real difficult time doing that, okay? Let's see what one there. They have something to do with the different sizes, okay, as well. The actual ones in the film are not the largest discovered. There are slightly larger ones, like the sauropods here, and they can get a bit bigger than the ones in the film, but they're not too far off the largest and stuff like that. I'm going to skip over that one. Yep, skip over that one. Cool. They also mention in the film about how they get some frog DNA to fill the gaps in the genetic sequence, because they haven't got a full genetic sequence, and then that gives the dinosaurs some frog-like features or some abilities of a frog. I'm pretty sure that does not work. I'm pretty sure frogs are way too far removed. I'm also pretty convinced that if you made a frog-dinosaur combination, even if it did work, it would have the genetic features of both. It wouldn't look like a dinosaur. Okay, it's a bit strange like that one. Now, the film title itself is rather misleading. Okay, so it's called Jurassic Park. However, most of the dinosaurs from the film are actually from the Cretaceous period. Okay, now most dinosaurs existed in the Cretaceous and the Jurassic period. Okay, there was a few in the Triassic, but most of them were from the Jurassic and the Cretaceous period, okay? So please bear that in mind as well. And obviously, I don't know if you're aware of this, but a Tyrannosaurus Rex never fought a Triceratops ever, because they're separated by a few million years, okay? So when you were a kid and you used to have like me, you used to have the dinosaurs, and you're like, rawr, okay? The Triceratops never actually ever skewered a Tyrannosaurus Rex and killed it, or vice versa, because they didn't exist at the same time. Just like cavemen didn't exist at the same time as dinosaurs, in case there's a creationist in the audience over there as well. Okay. Okay, the other one as well is how quick the Tyrannosaurus Rex runs. Okay, so I don't know how quick you guys run. Okay, I'm not particularly the fastest person in the world, but if let's say you were Usain Bolt about 30 miles per hour, okay, I can't remember what that is in K, 40 something. I'm British, 46k an hour or something like that. Okay, but that's obviously determined by his length of his legs. Okay, Tyrannosaurus Rex did weigh, you know, a lot. Okay, it did have longer legs, but it does weigh an awful lot. And this probably estimated it can probably get up to about 40, I think it's on there, about 40k an hour, Tyrannosaurus Rex. So it could outrun you, okay? Maybe not Usain Bolt of 100 meters, but it probably be able to outrun most people here. However, it cannot outrun a gas-powered Jeep, as they call it, okay? I'm pretty sure you're well aware that cars go a lot quicker than 40k an hour. Yes, good. Okay, so if they were in that car, all the guy had to do is gear, go, and fly, okay, and he would have just escaped it quite easily. Okay, so there you go. Of course, they mentioned that they're in the Dominican Republic getting all this amber, but that's not where you get the amber from. The amber there is not really old, okay? It's a bit more, only like a million or so years old. It's not the 65 million year old stuff that you need to get the dinosaur DNA, okay? That's another little error there as well, okay? Yeah. This one up here, of course, is about the fact that they did actually, have you ever seen a really old film like, what's it called? 10,000 BC or something like that, what's it called? Something like that? No? Like really old 30s, 40s, 1930s, 1940s films, black and white, like a dinosaur in it, something like that. And all they ever used to do was get a lizard and stick polystyrene on its back to make it have sails or to give it little spikes or horns, right? And they always had forked tongues and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know if anyone's ever seen it. If you have a look at some of the clips, you can quite clearly tell how the magic was done. Okay. In the film, they don't actually have forked tongues, and dinosaurs don't have forked tongues. That's an evolutionary feature that occurred later in the development for reptiles. Okay, so they got that bit right. Cool. Now, of course, how could we use the material in this film in real life? Okay, so we talked about maybe getting these little pet Trevor dinosaurs, okay, and we've very rightly said we probably don't want dinosaurs running around, okay, right? But could we use it for something to benefit us now? Okay, something that, you know, we could reverse a mistake we've made, all right? So, this guy here is a coelacanth, yeah, okay. You all recognise what one is, I hope. Okay, it's native to Tasmania was, and most of, I think, South Australia and round the south of Australia. Okay, we don't have these where I'm from. Okay, and the idea was, of course, that these became extinct. Okay, so these are completely extinct, but we do have some DNA of this animal. Okay, so what happens if we could try potentially to bring them back? Okay, so we could bring back from extinction, okay, something that was our fault that we got rid of. Okay, so we could technically bring back a coelacanth. All right. Do you think that might be an idea? Something that'd be good? Yeah. Okay. Got some. Yeah. Yeah. We pretty much drove it to extinction. Maybe we should undo some of the damage we did. Okay. Maybe we should bring some back. I think in the film they mentioned condors or something like that. Atlantic condors. If I brought a flock of condors back, you wouldn't mind. I think they mentioned. Okay. I think they're also trying to do this with passenger pigeons as well, which is also extinct. Okay, so they're trying to bring back some of the animals we've made extinct. Okay, so you wouldn't do this with frogs, okay, because amphibian DNA isn't compatible with. They're not even mammals, are they? What are they called? Sorry? It's the same as a kangaroo. Marsupial, thank you. Sorry. There we go. I get confused. Because they're kind of marsupial and amphibians, they're not going to have the same kind of overlap in terms of the DNA. You're not going to be able to just plug it that way. So you need to find something that's more closely related to a coelacanth that still exists. Okay. So can anyone think of anything that's a bit like a coelacanth? It's a marsupial. Okay. Similar-ish maybe in size. Coelacanths are about the size of a dog. Okay. Anyone think of anything that might exist in Tasmania, for example, but it's a similar size that's alive now? Featured in some cartoons. I've heard of these before I turned up. Yes, Tasmanian devil. Excellent. Okay, yeah, so Tasmanian devils, okay, they're also marsupials. Okay, they'll have similar genetic features and genetic material reasonably to a coelacanth. Okay, so you could technically use these as the cells you need, okay, to bring one back. Okay, what the heck is that? Yep, don't care about that. No, there we go. There we go. That's what I wanted. Okay. So you could technically get the embryo to develop for the coelacanth here, okay, and then you could implant it into a Tasmanian devil, and then the Tasmanian devil could give birth to a coelacanth. Keep going, get a load of coelacanths. Okay. Now, if you, yes, I did love this. Okay. Now, the idea, of course, is how far do you go? Okay. So you could technically, let's say you brought a coelacanth back. And the reason why it had died out wasn't because of us, it was because of some genetic feature that gave it a disease. Okay? So what happens if you could correct that feature? A bit like a designer baby, you want it to have blue eyes, for example, instead of green eyes or something like that. Okay? So that slide up there is all about what happens if you go, oh, I really want to make a Franken monster, I want it to be part this, part that, so you know, you can have a, I don't know, a giraffe-sized kangaroo. Okay? Or you can make a smaller giraffe. I mean, technically, it's an extreme form of selective breeding. Okay? So I don't know if you're aware, pure breed dogs, okay, they have a lot of problems with them because they are so inbred in terms of different cousins and relations and stuff like that, that they end up picking up lots of genetic deformities because of it, okay, because you need the diversity. So technically, we sort of practice selective breeding already. I don't think you'd ever want a giraffe with a kangaroo part. I don't know if you'd ever want that kind of stuff. Okay. But if we could bring the coelacanth back, for example, we could re-establish it into the wild. Okay. Reasons behind this, okay, would be, well, they weren't extinct too long ago. Okay, and when they were around, we didn't have all the problems with the cancer growths on Tasmanian devil's faces and stuff like that. Okay, so we didn't have all that kind of issues. We could sort of help to resolve that problem there. Okay, they could help re-establish all the ecosystem there, because obviously if you remove an apex predator, you're going to have lots of other lesser animals start to grow out of control. So obviously you might end up with lots and lots of the prey items. If it was preying on grubs and insects, okay, then obviously those would be eating crops. So by introducing the predator back into the wild, a natural predator, not like when you introduce cane toads, okay, you don't have to worry about all the other repercussions it would have on the ecosystem because you know it existed there before in the past. Okay. So I mean, if we can bring back coelacanths, we could also look at bringing back other reasonably recent deceased animals. Okay, so dodos or something like that. You could also bring back something like a woolly mammoth. Okay, so there's been talk of trying to bring a big woolly mammoth back because we've got elephants already. It's very similar. There's still frozen mammoths in the Arctic tundra, so we could also, you know, we've got the DNA from them there. Okay, and then you could technically have prehistoric park in Siberia or something like that. Okay, we could all go to Siberia and be freezing. Why would you ever want to go to Siberia? Okay, of course they're talking about if you did have these running wild, you might have increased car insurance. Okay, fair enough. And that's pretty much the end of my talk on the dinosaurs and the answers to your quizzes. Does anyone have any questions before I put the film on? No? Well done for shaking your head. That is the correct response to that question.